So
Mm,
I've got this message in the chat. A
yeah,
design service that allow users to
just a
search
minute,
for
Rajiv.
places.
Just a
Okay,
minute, Rajiv. I'll just give intro and hand over to you guys. Um,
okay, sure.
Hi, this is Naga and Asim. Like we lead the weekly system design channel, like it's at SDE Skills. So welcome everyone to SDE Skills, and this is a volunteer-driven community. So every Saturday we have a system design series. So this week we are having a mock interview, and the alternate weeks we normally have a deep dive discussions on any system design topics. So since this is a community driven, if you like to be part of mock interview, or like would like to present or discuss on any system design topics of your interest, please ping me or Asim in Discord. Feel free to join Discord and join the growing group. So with this, like today we have a mock interview, and the format of this is like we go about like 45 minutes to 1 hour of mock interview between the interviewee and interviewer, and like everyone listening as an audience, and like we collectively discuss the feedback, and we will also have an informal chat at the end if you have any questions or would like to discuss on anything. So today we have Rajiv volunteered for as an interviewee, and Sri Prasad will be acting as an interviewer. So yeah, with this I'll give forum to Sri Prasad. So go ahead and explain the question and get started. Sri Prasad, would you like to explain the question and start the
Yeah,
mock?
sure.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Sri Prasad. Nice to meet you. I'm taking this session on system design, and the question is: design a service that allows users to search for places, also known as listings, and reserve a place. So it is much like Airbnb, and that's a design that we are working today.
I see. Okay, sure. Thanks, Shri Prashad. If I read it right, we have to design a service that allows user to search for places or listings and reserve a place. I think you have listed Airbnb as one of the example. Okay, so I will start with getting more clarity on what this problem statement is. So
Sure.
when you say listings, then it means it could be it's mostly like hotels and those kind of things which we are trying to hotels and maybe stays those kinds of book which we are trying to book, or there can be some other variations of this as well.
Yeah, it's like a home. It's not a hotel, it's just a home. And
I see.
people can put their homes or listings on the
Okay,
service. And
I see.
the people who put the homes are hosts, and users, also known as renters. They can browse those listings and reserve a listing.
I see. Got it. So when you say browse and search, so it means that will they be searching by some of the name, or will they be searching by location, or what level of search are we trying to look here, or will they be searching by some other criterias, like for example, whatever the characteristics of a listing could be, like how many rooms or some kind of facility. So what breadth of search are we looking at here?
So let's say if I'm a user and I want to book, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a location.
Mhm.
Once I put a location, then I will be able to see a set of listing, and then I can choose from the listing which is available. I can put in my accommodation dates. Like I want a date between January 1st and January 5th.
Right.
And I should be able to book that accommodation within those dates. So location and date is what primarily I would be searching by.
I
That
see.
said, once I put a location, then I can see the names of all the listings in that location, and I should be able to click on the result and get these data.
I see. Got it. So you're saying broadly, the renters slash users will be searching by location and date. They will not be actually going and searching by the name of the listing. And so location and date are something what we have to focus on. Other facets like criteria, I think we need not focus on that right now. I think
Yeah,
these will be
let's
P0 for us.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's focus on the showing the listing and reserving it
Sure.
first by searching by date and location, and then we'll do the rest.
Sure. Now coming to the reserve part, which is the second flow of this. By reserve part, you mean that again when somebody has, searched for location and date and they have chosen something, then they can kind of say that, hey, I want to block this. It means that users will be, when they say reserved, then it means that do we have to like do we have to look at some kind of a payment kind of flow as well, or it is like very vanilla reserve kind of a thing, payment flow and user login is necessary. I'm looking at those kind of things.
Don't worry about payments, and
Okay.
don't worry about authentication. What
Okay.
I want is that if two
Mhm.
users clicks on the book now button, only one of them should be
Mhm.
able to book.
Nice. Are attempting to book, only one of them should, should get it. Okay, sure. Sounds good. So yeah, I think these are the things overall I had from the functional requirement perspective. Let me jump into NFS
Yeah,
directly.
just to be clear, the user
Mhm.
login isn't necessary, authentication isn't necessary.
Yeah,
Payment,
correct.
you don't have to worry about that, but just that two users shouldn't be able to book at the same time.
Yeah, got it. So I will just strike through these things, and I will strike through these things as well. And right, so I think these are not important. Favorite and they are not. So manifest wise, okay. So I am of course assuming it needs to be highly available. Like it should not be, the service should be available for booking all the time. Throughput wise, and there are basically two types of throughputs which we are looking at. One is basically a read flow, which is essentially just a browse flow in which people are coming and they are actually not, may or may not book. And then come the write flow, which is basically the reserve flow. And what is the throughput slash QPS we're looking at? So let's say it's a pretty famous hotel like Airbnb. So I am assuming, will it be fair to say that we are looking at a read QPS at least of 100K and maybe a write QPS of because in these kind of situation typically read is more and write is less. So maybe write QPS of 10K. Is that fair?
Uh, yeah, sure. Assume that there are around 10, 1 million listing and 10, 50 million users.
Mhm. I see. So you are actually saying that they will be like, sorry, can you say again? How many users? How many
150
million
million
users?
users and around 150 million users and around 1 million listing.
Right. So capacity
And you
planning,
can work
although I've read,
you can
sorry, go
work
on.
back your read and write flow from these, but sure, this is fine.
Yeah, I think capacity. Okay, sure. I think even now, even 1 million, 150 million users wise, I still feel that 100K is sufficient, is quite on a good side. And we will definitely create it in such a way that we can scale out the system. But just to get a brief sense, I think this is the thing. Yeah, capacity wise, I think the things which I would have like. Is that you said users wise we are not storing anything, to be honest. So maybe the concept of user SSH doesn't exist. But what I'm trying to look at is that disk persistence, memory, some kind of thing, and then memory, persistence, DB, memory, and then the Android files. There's nothing special I would like to do, to be honest, but we can get back to it. And then maybe the number of hosts. Right? Okay. For the, I think right now, I think I'm not going into capacity planning right now. To be honest, I will get back to this once I have once I have a rough idea of the design. I will like to present you design and then get a buy-in. Then we can come back to this, that capacity wise how we are doing the number of.
Fair enough.
So let me jump to this guy. Um, so you can see my Jamboard, right?
Yeah.
Can you still see it?
No.
Okay, just give me 1 second then. How about now?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, got it. Okay. Uh, my bad. Uh, Sorry, just give me 1 second. Oh, okay. So yeah, so let me start with the let's start with the maybe the browse flow first, and then let's start drawing out something. So I will design my service be behind. I will be following a microservice model, and perhaps I will be exposing all the communication with outside world through HTTP endpoints. And then I will be having a for the outside, for the public domain, the people who are interacting with me through my desktop or mobile or anything. I will be having some kind of API gateway, and so that they can interact with the service. Then I think coming to the service wise, I will like to have some kind of a maybe something called a search slash browse service. It could be very much a catalog service as well, which is basically responsible for showing the users the results. And then I can have another microservice maybe here, which could be like the reservation service, which is responsible for making the reservations. And then we can have a service which is basically a service which is responsible for creation of which is on the path of new listing. So I can call it an ingestion service, or which is basically responsible for creation when somebody create a new service or some new listing.
Can you move your
And yeah,
Jamboard a little bit up? Like I cannot see the insertion service clearly. Um,
I see. Let me do that. Okay.
it's fine. Yeah, it's carry on. I don't want to disturb you, but I'm just letting you know.
Okay. I will try to avoid the below section. Um. So yeah. Okay. So now what we are, and then we will have the APIs which we will expose basically is something like a new listing. And then here the API which we will expose as a post API these reserve. This will be all, this will not be new, sorry. It will be like listing. And then it will be post API, and similarly we will have a search which will be mostly a get call. Right. Now let's see how does a listing looks like. A listing will typically have I will go to a different slice. So listing we can say will have certain things like it will have an ID. I'm not saying we can decide what is the best data store, but let's try to give it a schema.
Sure,
It will
sure.
have an ID, it will have a name, and then we have not actually decided location wise. I think I should have asked this before. Will this location will be something like a coordinates, or will it be something just like a string is sufficient for given the location?
Let's
I think
assume
I
that
should
the
have asked
location is lat and long.
lat and long. I see. Got it. Got it. Mhm. And location will be a composite thing of lat and long. Um, we can maybe have we can have and then it will be let's say, yeah, I think right now I'm not going to the we because this is a listing, so it will be a boolean. There's no concept of how many rooms. I think we can have all those other attributes, but let's say we will not go into that because we are not using them, but we can have all those different attributes. So this is how a location will look, an entry for and listing will look like, and
So,
these will
couple
be
of
provided.
things.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, a listing will also have availability dates, like
yeah.
to what day it is available. A
I
listing should
see. I
ideally
see.
have a price associated with it. But since we are not
Okay.
dealing with payments, assume that there is a price and it's a constant price across for the listing.
I
But
see.
there should be a way that I can say that the property is available only from, say, October 1st till December 1st,
Hmm.
or some sort of
Sure.
a time range where the listing
I
is
see.
available. And I
I see.
think this
Got.
should also be required when you do a reserve.
Hmm. Sure. Sounds good. Thank you for pointing that out. In that case, I think perhaps I will like to keep that in perhaps a separate table called listing availability, maybe a different entity, or and then which will basically have the listing ID as a representative of a foreign key, and then it will perhaps have some some kind of some schema in which we have to show the availability dates as well as the price. So I'm thinking what is the best way to basically do this kind of a thing in which we show availability dates as well as price. I'm thinking more in the range of perhaps if somebody says that it will be 1st to 30th January, the price is, let's say 100. And then somebody comes and say, okay, for February, the price is something different. And the listing is the same listing one, and the same listing one have, 1 to 30 February, a different price. I'm looking at this kind of a model, but right now, to be honest, it might change. But yeah, I think overall listing availability will look like this. They we will perhaps also like to have something called a reservation entity as well, and the reservation entity will be perhaps this is so these all data, both of these listing and listing availability, the characteristics of this data are both of them are a little bit slow moving. They will not change much. And while our reservation table will be a very very typical OLTP, and because we have this use case of we want nobody else should be able to basically book more than one, so we would like to have strong transactional properties in this particular table. So this is something which I will definitely like to be in MySQL or other relational or any other Postgres or any other thing which provide me those guarantees. While I'm still open about the listing and the listing availability table, they could be very well go into a relational table, or they can go in relational, or they can perhaps go into some kind of document DB kind of a structure here.
What would you prefer? If you were to design it, what
Yeah,
would you do?
sure. I think a good designing is dependent just not on the storage, but as well as the query aspects as well. So because I've still not reached the query aspect, I'm going to come to that. So I'm just keeping this option open right now. I will just get come back to it when I decide my searching and booking flow, so that I have a fair idea of what kind of queries I'm going to make.
Okay.
So so reservation wise, I think this will be pretty simple, in which there will be an ID, and then the reservation ID. I can call it RID, and then there will be listing ID, and then perhaps there will be a date. We can have different date, and then perhaps we can have a um, yeah. I think this these. We can have date, and then maybe the user, right, the person who booked it. So something like this will be there. Now let me get back. So now when somebody do search, so they're giving two things in the search API. They are giving date, and they are giving the location. And I'm assuming that if at any point of time, if a hotel, or sorry, if a listing is not available, then we will perhaps not even show that listing, or we can show, but we can grade out something, this kind of structure. Now to get to that, we will basically like to now figure out our listings from our, and you have given me latitude and longitude. So that means we will receive the input also as latitude and longitude from this person, from the user. And then we will have to do some kind of a proximity kind of a search here, that okay, we have to figure out all of our locations which are basically which are around this location. So now there are multiple ways we can do that. Perhaps we can use we will need to set up some kind of a geo index over it, so that we can search by the location. And
Sure. Can you tell me a little bit more? Like, if I am coming and I'm telling in the search box,
mhm,
give me all the listings for New York, and I want the
mhm,
dates between December 15th and December 31st.
right,
How
right.
would that flow go?
Mhm, sure. Mm. What I'm thinking is, if we are doing this kind of a thing, then perhaps we should not actually read from this table. Actually, to be honest, I think what I am proposing is basically having a service which lets me have these kind of filterings, and which is kind of also updated in the real time. So I'm looking at some kind of a Elasticsearch kind of a service here. So basically, how will Elasticsearch help here me? Elasticsearch has this concept of inverted fields and forward fields. And then in inverted fields, we can have the inverted fields as the latitude, longitude, and we can have a geo. We can specify that, hey, I want a geo index to the Elasticsearch on this. And when I say geo index, it will be creating some there are literatures out there in which the geo index works well. The Elasticsearch provides out of the box. I can also explain, but I think that will be a little bit out of the scope, so I will not go in that direction. But I will say that I will make use of the geo index which this provide, and then also another thing which I will provide is a range query the range query over the dates, and
Okay.
then also and then it will also have availability fields as well. So I will create a Boolean query in Elasticsearch to give me something which and having the inverted fields on latitude, longitude for geoindex, range query on dates, and a filtering kind of a field on the availability. And then is when it will return me all of the IDs of the entities which are available. And then those, for the details of those ID, I can hit back to my main DB and get results from that DB and and result a JSON from the
Okay.
API which has all of those things.
Okay.
Now, how do
Hold
I
on.
keep the,
Hold
yeah,
on.
go on.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Two questions.
yeah.
In this diagram,
Hmm.
you mentioned that you return that the first two are slow and the reservation is fast. The table,
Hmm.
the reservation is supposedly fast, and that's why you said that you wanted to have
Hmm.
a transactional on the reservation table. If
Yeah,
you are going to
submitting
hit
resolution.
if you're going to hit this location, if you're going to hit from the
Hmm.
Elasticsearch to this location table, all the time,
Hmm.
every time 1 million users tries to search, and I believe that searching is going to be much
Yeah,
more than the writing,
yeah.
then do you think it's going to support it?
Yeah, so I think the table I am now using, and now I'm using the table something as which is actually not in the critical path, in the user path. I'm now treating these tables more of as my source of truth. So actually, I'm not hitting these both of these tables right in the query path. What I'm saying is that whenever any of these updates, any CRUD happens on any of these table, we will be updating our Elasticsearch. It will fire a event for any CRUD, some kind of a change log, and that will update my Elasticsearch. So my Elasticsearch will be all, and similarly, whenever some reservation also happen, it will also go and hit my Elasticsearch.
Okay,
Now,
hold
so
on.
my Elasticsearch is up. Yeah,
I'm confused a little bit. You said
yeah,
that the Elasticsearch will only hold IDs and does not hold any other data. And for getting the data, you
yeah.
need to fetch the DB. Which DB is it going to fetch?
I see. Sure, I get your question. You are right. For fetching the ID, I'm taking it back to once the process of filtering out the entities have been happened and the Elasticsearch return me an ID, then I'm saying that yes, we will go back and hit the IDs. And but yeah, perhaps that will be problematic. In that case, I can make use of the forward fields of the Elasticsearch and basically store all of the data. Like I need just the name and perhaps some attributes, and so all of these things I can store in the Elasticsearch cluster forward field itself. And then the same flow I'm using, the change log through which I'm keeping the Elasticsearch updated, they can also update these forward fields as well. So in this way, yeah, you are right. If I do this, then perhaps I need not even hit the tables during any time in the at least these two tables in the search flow.
Hold on. If you don't hit the
Right.
table, and
Hmm.
suppose I reserve,
Yeah,
and
reservations flow. I'm coming. This is just the search and the query flow. So this is like the
okay,
search flow. Somebody till now nobody had actually made any right changes.
okay,
I'm only serving the result from the Elasticsearch.
okay,
And
hold on,
yeah,
1 second, 1 second. Uh,
yeah,
if I'm a host
yeah,
and I want to add new listing
yeah,
so that people can search for it, because we're talking about the search flow,
yeah.
okay, and I want to add new listing so that it comes up directly on the Elasticsearch. If I update the DB, how does Elastic know that this field got added, and who updates the Elasticsearch for new fields so that it can become searchable?
Yeah, good question. The new addition of new fields in Elasticsearch on the basis of if you want to set up a search on the basis of new attributes, it will not be something which we can do it out of the box. But I believe that is the same problem which will happen in the main table also. Right now, for example, if we have certain if we like, how does a typical search system work? Is somebody can either search by text-based search, or they can apply some kind of facets which we provide. Now you are saying me that what will happen if a new kind of a field, let's say if a room has air conditioning or not, that has come up now
No, no, no.
instantly.
That's not
Okay,
what I'm saying. I'm saying that I
okay,
want to, as a host, I want to add a new
right.
home to the
Mm-hmm,
Airbnb listing page. Okay.
mm-hmm,
And ideally, when I add a new listing, it should be
mm-hmm.
searchable. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That's where I'm not getting the connection as
I know it will
how it
be
will
sure.
be. Okay.
I will explain that. I think I did. I think I missed it. I said it rapidly, so perhaps we did not get. So what I'm going to do is basically, let's say, whenever somebody do any kind of CRUD on both of these tables, right? Then just like in MySQL, we have this concept of bin log, and then whatever changes happen in MySQL, they gets written, and then you know, there are mechanism in which we can, whenever any C, U, or D happen, then although those change logs will be pushed to a Kafka queue. I think I tried to explain here, but send it fastly. So any kind of updates happening on these table will be pushed, will be propagated down a Kafka queue as change events, as change logs. So if somebody add a new event, if somebody update, sorry, somebody add a new listing, if somebody update their current listing, all of those will go to the Kafka queue after getting committed here. They should be first updated in the source of truth. And then my Elasticsearch will be basically reading from those Kafka queue and keeping its index updated. So there will be some
Can you
latency. It will not be, yeah, basically it will near line, you know, it will be updating in a real time indexing kind of a fashion. Yeah, sorry, go on.
okay? That's fine. You are
Yeah.
telling that at the time of ingestion,
Mm-hmm.
a person, a host who updates, who
Mm-hmm.
wants to add a new listing,
Mm-hmm.
it will hit the ingestion, in this case, microservice you are saying.
Yeah.
And this ingestion service has to update in MySQL
Yeah. Yeah,
and
you are right. Yeah.
some other, yeah, please draw those because I can't
Yeah,
understand
you are right.
what
Yeah,
you're
you
saying. But sure, I see your point where
yeah.
the Kafka will update it. What happens
Yeah.
if Elastic fails, or is it like one single Elastic server that serves this 1 million
Uh,
requests?
no. I've written is Elastic cluster. So it will not be just one. It will be, of course, a host of nodes, and then we will basically sharding. Typically index sharding mechanism have to be specified. So we will be specifying some index sharding mechanism, which in this case perhaps could be the geolocation itself. So we will say that there are like 100 shards in my Elasticsearch cluster or Solar cluster, and then my sharding key is perhaps a single key as simple as the location. Or if you want to further
What do you mean location? Location as in lat and long. So you'll have one shard per lat and long.
no. It will be a range. It will be a range of them actually. So I'm not exactly sure. It will not be for one location, but it will be, let's say we say that okay, whenever we apply some kind of hashing mechanism, and then we say that okay, these are the possible hashes. These are the possible hashes which can happen in a circle, in a ring buffer kind of a thing. And then we can say, hey, I will map all of my latitude, longitude on all of this possible ring, and then I will say, okay, this particular range will go to this guy, and this particular range will go to this guy. So
That's
in this way,
consistent hashing. That's okay.
yeah.
That's okay. That's consistent hashing. What you're saying. What happens if
Yeah.
I insert a new listing into the listing table,
Mm-hmm.
but by the time I got updated in the cluster, I'm assuming that there is
Mm-hmm.
some master or slave or some kind of leader follower
Mm-hmm.
thingy happening in the cluster. The leader
By cluster, you mean which cluster? Elasticsearch cluster?
elastic cluster. Yes, elastic
Sure.
cluster.
Okay.
And I updated the elastic cluster, got that, but it died immediately.
Hmm.
Okay, so I want it to
Hmm.
be highly available. I don't want my
Sure.
listing to get lost and not show. What happens in that
Sure.
scenario?
Sure, definitely. So in this case, first of all, what we can do if Elasticsearch cluster, all of the nodes will be basically, I can actually draw out of how does will this typical setup look like. So we will have this it could be typical pub sub mechanism, which could be like Kafka or anything, and then we can further have the concept of partitions in this. So and then ideally we will like to have the partitioning mechanism of Kafka queue to be same as the partitioning mechanism of Elasticsearch. We will try to have that kind of a logic. So it means that if it is like partition one and if this is partition two and these are the different entries, then my Elasticsearch nodes which correspond to this partition, and they are like multiple nodes. All of them will be basically listening to the
Got it.
same partition, and similarly all of them will be listening to the other partition. Now you're right, and all of them will be unstable. There will be no concept of a leader follower in them. I think we can I did not went into that detail because it will bring out
Okay,
the
so
scope.
there is no leader follower in them. So if one of them
There's
dies,
no leader follower. Yeah,
okay,
one of them dies, the other can serve the traffic. We can also rely on the rollback mechanism of Kafka. If it died before even giving an ACK, then the message will still continue to remain there and somebody else
okay.
can read it. We can
Let's
have reconciliation mechanism as well to solve this.
okay.
Uh, uh,
Let's focus on the reservation part. I see your
yeah,
search part. Let's focus on the reservation part.
sure. Sounds good. So now let's come back to the reservation part. So now the user has got the IDs. User has got a result presenting them in the front end, and they have decided, okay, this is the thing I want to go with, and then they click the reserve button, and then is when as soon as they kind of click the reserve button, what we are going to do is we are going to make an entry in the reservation in the reservation table. And first of all, when let's say there could be a difference, there could be a lag in the time when they searched it versus now they are going to book it. So once they click the reserve, first of all we are going to execute a query to our reservation table, and then ask it, hey, is the reservation still valid? Are the dates still valid? Now the interesting thing, a very interesting thing in this query will be how do we model our data so that this kind of a representation this kind of a query is easier. The kind of query which I'm saying that, hey, for this listing ID, for this particular dates, is there it is, and we can have a state here as well. And the state can have possible things of the state could be like blocked, or it could be committed. Blocked means that for next 15 minutes it is blocked, you cannot do it, it might get free. Committed means that it is done, it is a reserved kind of a thing. So now we will like to have such kind of a query in this thing.
Okay, are you there?
Rajiv, we can't hear you. Rajiv, can you reconnect or let me try to mute and unmute you if that helps?
How you can use like some
Yeah,
state.
yes, that's right. So give me 1 second.
Yeah, let's give extra 5 minutes towards the end, Sri Prasad. So, yeah.
Sure, sure.
Mm.
Are you able to see this thing?
No, I'm not able to see.
No.
Came up
I
and
hope
disappeared.
now. I hope now you are able to see.
Yeah, now I can see.
So yeah, so what we're trying to say is that we will like to have in between the time somebody has searched and then reached on the button, a reservation button, we will also like to do a quick check if something have been booked in between. So I'm maintaining this kind of a data where I'm having listing ID, date, and the status of this thing.
Mhm.
So if there is an entry, if there is an entry in this table which is either committed or blocked. By blocked is, I mean, we'll be blocking for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Then they will say that, hey, your reservation is invalid. Please go back and try again. And then they will search again, and our Elasticsearch cluster should be ideally not showing them based on our real time index update. It should not be ideally showing the booked one. Now let's come to the part where that is not the case, and we are now actually want to make the booking. In that case, we will make an entry in this table of all the possible dates like they are interested to do. We will actually also create a separate table called booking. It will have a booking ID. This Why I'm doing this is because here I have kind of kept the dates normalized. Sorry. Well, like somebody good from 12 January, 13 January, I am actually, to simplify my query, I am kind of having a separate row for all the possible dates. You can say that there are pros and cons of this because I might increase the size of my table, but then on the other hand, we don't expect a very huge bookings because we will anyhow some kind of upper limit, and also it simplify our life in the term of easy searching kind of a thing. We can also keep it denormalized, and then some logic will be at the client side to check if the range they are trying to make the date they're trying to make the booking in falls in this range or not. So we are open from both of the perspective. The client will be need to a little bit more intelligent if we are keeping it denormalized.
I, I
That's
I
the
didn't
thing.
I didn't understand that part. Can you tell me, like, you are having
Yeah,
another table
yeah,
and
sure. So I will just explain it again. So what I said is I will keep maintain a listing ID, and then let's say somebody want to make a booking for 12 to 28 January. So what I will do is I will basically create 9 rows in this table, in my reservation table, one for each date. That is one option. The other is I still create just one table, but then in the date wise, I keep a date of from date and
so
basically an
what
end
is
date.
what I'm trying to get is, like, what is your design like?
Yeah.
How would you deal with this? And also,
Sure.
if you're having another database, you will have one. So we have around 1 million listings,
Mhm.
and each of those 1 million listings can have a date range. So
Mhm.
your database is going to have, for one listing, all the dates that it can. So if I have a listing for 1 year, you will have like 365 rows per listing.
Sure.
Uh,
I'm getting your point. In that case,
okay.
perhaps my design will be more on the basis of from and the end date in the reservation table. This is yeah. I think so. It
So
will be. I will just draw it nicely, maybe here. So it
okay.
will be LID, and then it will be RID, reservation ID, listing ID. It will be from date, and then it will be to date, and then it will be the status. No extra booking ID in this case. So now if somebody make a booking from like 12th January to 20th January, and the status could be confirmed, let's say confirmed, and the listing ID could be one, and the reservation ID is just the primary key, could be, let's say, 100, and the listing ID for listing ID, same listing ID 100, uh, reservation ID 200, could be from date 21st January to 25th January. and this is, let's say, a block. This is some, this is like kind of somebody
Somebody's
trying to
querying.
make, somebody is querying, right? So when somebody says, when somebody says that, when they click the reservation button, if this entry will, this entry will get created in that. Now if anybody trying to make a booking in this direction, in these dates, they will be denied.
Okay.
And how's the client will be able to know? They will, this table will be, somebody will search for all that, give me listing, give me reservations of all of the listings of listing ID 1, and then it will be returned, and then the client will be basically deserializing this data and having this logic that,
Okay.
hey, is somebody trying to make a booking in 23rd and 24th? Is it something, so this, that logic will happen.
Okay.
Now it will be blocked for 15 minutes. It will go to the payment flow, and then if the payment succeeds, then there will be a callback registered kind of a mechanism. Maybe it could be a lambda, or something like that. And this callback mechanism, the job of this callback mechanism will be to update this guy as confirmed, and then some other mailer flow in which, hey, your booking is confirmed. If not, if the payment fail, then the same callback mechanism will get triggered, and then after 15 minutes or so, we'll basically delete this entry from here. Or perhaps if you want to keep our data immutable, if you not don't want to keep the delete, we can introduce a third state called failed, something like that.
Yeah, call available so that other people can use it. Um, um,
Sure.
yeah. My question is who clears this block, and the second is, can you draw end to end, like what happens if I search for it, if I try to
Hmm.
book for a certain field, and who clears this record once it's in
I
a block
see.
state?
I see. Who clears the record? I can answer first. Sure. So what we can do is, let's say if we what I'm looking at is, scheduled scheduled jobs, scheduled in future. So those are the things I'm looking at. So there will need to be, first of all, a set of jobs, or tasks, or
Hmm.
we can also call it futures.
Hmm.
These are entities which are executable, some logic in them, some lambda contained in them. And then what we are looking at is a set of worker nodes which kind of work on these jobs and tasks.
Hmm.
So I can design this as a altogether parallel system, which the whole company can use. So I can say that, hey, this is again relying on typical queue mechanism. Somebody can wrap a lambda and the logic inside this task. A task can be an abstraction, and put it in a queue. And then this worker node, the only job of this worker node is basically to keep looking in this. This will be a set of nodes. They can just be consuming from these things. Take one task from the queue out, and then all of these tasks can have abstraction like dot process. These worker nodes will be totally oblivious of what is happening going on inside this process.
Okay.
They will just call task their process, and that thing will happen. Now this will be the responsibility of the whoever using it to make sure they have written a correct logic inside the process API. In our case, the correct logic will be, hey, has the 15-minute passed since the booking happened? In that case, in has the 15-minute passed or not? I think perhaps that, if not, then perhaps put me back in the queue. Let the next worker pick me up after 15 minutes. But
Okay.
if the 15 minute had passed and the payment has failed or not, then I think, okay, update this API if this row correctly.
Okay. Can you
Something
show
like
me
that.
end to end? How does it look?
Uh, So and uh, end to end, yeah, sure. Give me one sec. So it will be something like this. So yeah, I think I told, yeah. So end to end will be, for the outside world, we will have the API gateway, and then we will have a endpoint exposed by the for the search system, and the HTTP endpoint support for the ingest or any kind of update. It's ingest/update, and then we have.
Let me rephrase. Just want to see the reservation. How does it end to end looks? Don't worry about search and ingest. Just how does the
I
reservation
see.
looks end to end?
Sure. So for the reservation part, yeah, there's a reserve API, and then it kind of talks to the reserve API, kind of talks to the reservation DB, the reservation table, and also maybe to the listing. It also talk to listing tables as well. And then the logic here will be kind of reading this table to make the uh, to get the first of all get that whatever dates have come in that it is available or not. It will poll the reservation table. If not, it will return false. But if no, it will go ahead and create an entry in the reservation table. And then the update from reservation table will go to Elasticsearch. And then also similarly, the reservation after this guy will also in the same transaction, perhaps transaction not the correct word, but then this guy will redirect itself to the payment service, to the payment gateway, and then in the meantime it will also inject a task in our task queue, the task queue which I was talking about. So these are the three things perhaps this guy will do, and then it will kind of return, because after handing over to payment gateway it will return, and the
Okay.
call will kind of finish from this end. It will not be a blocking call till the whole thing happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens to the payment system? What does it do? It
Okay.
assuming that payment system works, how does it affect the reservation table?
So the payment system, basically, I did not touch upon the payment, but when we pass some details to the payment gateway, then payment service. It will not be just a payment. It will be just first a payment service, and then there will be a payment third party payment gateway.
No, no,
This
don't
payment
worry about
services.
payments,
Yeah.
how internally payment service works.
Yeah.
But somehow
Okay.
you have to update your reservation table to say now the reservation
Yeah.
is committed.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now it
Yeah.
is in block state. Yeah, that's the part. Don't worry about how payment works.
Sure. So the reservation service, after handing over to payment service in an asynchronous way, it is now returned. The HTTP and call is ended. Now this payment service will take over, and then because this is the internal payment service, it will when it call, it will also pass on some of the details which basically it will pass the reserve RID which we created here. It will give send this RID to the payment service guy, and then the payment service, if it if it passes, then it will update the RID in my database, in my similar database. It will update the RID to that particular status that it is
I didn't follow it.
done.
What are you updating and where are you updating?
So the RID which the reservation service hand over to the payment service, and then the payment service talking to gateway. If the payment pass, then our payment service should be able to, given that it has RID in the picture, then it should be able to kind of update the same RID with the status that okay, it is booked.
The payment service will
Or
update the reservation table with the RID.
yeah, it will basically change the status. So what I'm trying to think is that, is it a good idea for the payment service actually to be aware of the reservation table, or it should actually call the or it should actually perhaps call one of the endpoint. I think it should not actually update the reservation table. It should actually call back the reserve service itself, and reserve service should basically expose another internal HTTP endpoint which say that, hey, this payment is successful, and then the reserve service itself should kind of update this table. We have already created an entry in the table, RID with the status of blocked, and then once it is payment service kind of say that okay, here it is done, then it should call back the reserve service that hey, payment for this RID was successful. This will be a non-public HTTP endpoint, and this guy will kind of change the status of that particular RID to confirmed.
Okay, what
In
happens if
in the case when, let's say, payment service goes wrong and then it's not able to kind of return something, that is the case when our task queue will come into the picture. The task queue, the logic which we injected in the task queue, that will come into the picture. That will wake up and see that hey, 15 minutes have passed and no answer was there from RID. Uh, then this task you can again call, one another non-public HTTP endpoint of reservation service and say that hey, this guy seemed to have failed. You can take whatever action you wanted to take.
what
The
happens
whole, yeah.
what happens if reservation service puts a record to payment service, and payment
Mhm,
service makes a call to the gateway, payment gateway,
mhm.
and it now becomes successful. And then payment service tries to call reservation service, but reservation service fails. What do you do?
Sure. So in a very typical payment kind of a thing, I think to make sure that these kind of things don't repeat, we need to have some kind of a reconciliation mechanism in this particular case because the money is involved here. So we will need to have some WL write ahead log kind of a structure in which as soon as payment service has got a response from the payment gateway, before it even call reservation service, this guy should update in a write ahead immutable log, write ahead log kind of a thing. And then I will yeah, I think even if the reservation service failed, the user will get to see that hey, something bad happened. You can kind of hold on for we will update you in 15 minutes or so. And then we will need to have a reconciliation. By reconciliation mechanism, I mean somebody is going to read from this immutable logs and then take some action on the basis of that, so that reservation service and payment service are always in sync. So there could be a lot of, what will happen is that all of these operations are supposed to be like idempotent operation. Like if there is a write ahead log in which was for a reservation which successful happened and payment service was able to update reservation service that everything is fine. In that case, reservation service will say, hey, I have already seen this guy. No worries, I have the data updated, and then this reconciliation mechanism from the logs will be a no op operation because it's an idempotent. But
What
if the reservation, sorry.
I see your point. What happens
Yeah.
in your task where you are adding to check whether it is in
Mm-hmm,
blocked after 10
mm-hmm,
minutes? Uh,
mm-hmm.
A, it's going to scan the entire table to find out, hey, give me all the records which are in block state and which are 5 minutes past the current time. If you have 1 million records, it's going to scan all those records. And if you have like 10 years of data, then all the data.
No, no,
Is
sorry,
is it wise?
I didn't. No, no, sorry. Can you repeat the question? It will never scan 1 million records.
You're
We
saying
will
that
have.
the
Okay,
uh,
okay.
the task which tries to look at the records in the reservation table which are in
Mhm.
blocked state and which are 5 minutes past, because only after that you will change your state from
So
block to confirm.
there will be a different task for every reservation ID. There will not be a one task which will be responsible for all the block thing. So whenever somebody do a reservation and an RID gets created, a very unique brand new task will get created, which is very specific to that reservation ID. So it will never be scanning 100 million records, and we will, of course, have the concept of sort key and secondary index in the reservation table to make sure that the lookup is faster. To answer your question, no, there will be brand new task created for every RID. So it's not one task responsible for all the possible reservations going on.
Okay, so here is what I'm worried about. Your reservation
Okay.
is doing too many things. It's adding to
Yeah.
the reservation table. It's updating your
Mm-hmm.
task asynchronously so that it blows off the state after 5 minutes. It's calling
Mm-hmm.
the payment service. And I don't know, some
Mm-hmm.
other thing also you told, write ahead log or something. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also updating the Elasticsearch. These are like core operations that
No,
once
no,
services.
no. It will not update the Elasticsearch. Yeah, other three things will happen. Elasticsearch will be all the CRUD from the table will go to Elasticsearch.
Just a time check, guys. Like you have
Yeah,
few, you can take around another 3 minutes or so to wrap up.
Okay.
3 to 5 minutes.
sure. No, I think I get your point. There are too many things happening. At least three things are happening. The reservation table is getting updated, the task queue is getting updated, and the payment service is getting updated. Now you're asking like, and they are of course not happening in a common transaction because they are not happening on one entity. I guess your question is what will happen if it fails in between one of these things, like we will be in a dirty state.
It won't be a good customer experience.
Yeah, yeah, sure. That's a good that's a good point. Um, in that particular scenario, well, yeah, this risk does exist, to be honest, in this setup. Whenever basically my job is doing three things, and ideally those things should be a thing which should have been happening in one transaction. It means either none of them have happened or all of them have happened. But in this case, because they are in three different worlds and we cannot really go in the direction of we cannot have a distributed transaction and two-phase commit kind of a thing here, then yeah, I think this kind of a situation exists. And in this situation, our user will see an error happened, or they will see some failure kind of a thing, to be honest. I agree. I think that is a loophole here in the reservation survey. There are ways to solve it. I'm not saying that there are no ways to solve it. We can perhaps decouple some of the things, but those things are going to make our design a little bit a little bit more complicated. I can definitely add some more moving parts in the system to make it work. To be honest, uh, basically have a mechanism in which even if the service fails, things happen in the background. That is possible, and then I will again rely on my task queue mechanism to do that.
Mm.
To be
Okay.
honest,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's call it for now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
you guys are done, right? Okay. Thanks, Sri Prasad and Rajiv.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Shri
Yeah,
Prasad. Yeah.
yeah, this was a wonderful session. So let's hang on, like, and open up the session to audience to see if they have any quick feedback for both Rajiv and Sri Prasad. Anyone like to go first? Let me pick some names who regularly give.
It will be great
Uh,
if people can
uh,
comment.
Drupad, I'm just picking names. Is Praveen there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So do I have to go first?
Yeah, anyone, like, yeah, go ahead, Drupad. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I like the way he designed like some things I didn't understand, but
Mm-hmm.
the way he designed the system and like his depth of knowledge was good, the schemas and all. My suggestion to improve is like to make a good use of the real estate. Like there are some blocks are very big, like an API gateway is big, and then sometimes um, Rajiv, you were just talking like, oh, this will go from here, but there was nothing to show here. So somebody might have might struggle to understand what you are exactly saying. So I would say if you can make these diagrams little bit less cluttered, it would be look nice and it would be easy to follow.
Got
Um,
it.
okay, yeah, just keep the diagram open for the feedback. So yeah, thanks Drupad for the feedback. Ankur, you have any
But
feedback?
before that, but
Uh,
if you have anything for me, it'll be helpful for me also when I become a candidate.
That was great. I like you were you were asking the questions that I also would have asked. Uh, so you probed into more details. So I liked it as an interviewer.
Thank you.
okay, Ankur, would you like to go?
I mean, nothing from my side actually. I'll go maybe later.
Okay, sure, thank you. Praveen or Praveen Sataru? I'm just picking up names, but feel free to unmute and speak up. There is no order as such. If you want, like, you can always unmute and speak up.
Hi, this is Praveen Sitaru. I think the interview went well, and I like the way Shiva was hinting on few areas, which is good, and pushing the interviewer to answer. One thing in the design wise, I think your high level design is good, but you could have added some load balancers or some other. You could have just mentioned that somewhere,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
and you the last at the right it started well with API search and this one, but on the right hand side diagrams they are not clear. They
Mhm.
got little bit. You could have used boxes or something so that then you could have had more real estate to actually use that. Other than that,
Oh.
I think you did a good job of explaining on a high level and then also going to some aspects of database design and querying and APIs. And basically, the key for any of the reservation system is the topic that you just touched on is basically temporarily blocking and completed and unlock. That part was the key
Mhm.
for all this reservation system, which you just touched on, which is good that you know that aspect of it. Overall, I think it's good.
Got it. Got it. So yeah, load balancer and proper real estate usage. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Praveen.
And estimates, you didn't bring it back up, right? So you should have just
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
You said after your design, you're going to come back to estimates, which you didn't
Yeah.
come back.
Which
Yeah.
I did not. Agree. Agree. Yeah. Good point.
Um, anyone else voluntarily want, like, or I can pick
Hi,
names. Um,
hi. I can actually add on a couple of things. I
mm,
think I joined a little late,
mm,
but I got
mhm,
the sense of what's happening. So,
mhm,
first thing is that like as an interviewer, as let me pick Sri Prasad. I think he did very good job of depicting the problem and more importantly which area to focus on at the starting from like initial discussion that has started. So that's a good thing. And also, a few other things that I feel like I'm missing is that the interview, like in this case, Rajiv was actually going so fast. I mean, I was having really hard time,
Yeah.
articulating some of the thoughts. I mean, maybe he was right from his mindset, but like in a real interview, I would just say that, take a breath and take a one topic and explain to that from the bottom of the heart. I mean, don't rush. I mean, there's no need to rush in this whole process because I know that this whole topic was pretty huge. And and in order for you to be focused and more articulated when you think about this, I think it's better to ask more questions to the interviewer. So that way, because look, the search, the reservation system itself, and the ingestions. Those are three separate topics. And I can understand that it's hard to cover like in a 20 minutes or 30-minute session in this case, given that we, spent to cut out all the time of estimations and functional requirements and other things as such. So that's one thing that I felt. Another thing that I felt like the whole purpose of this whole design interview are two things, right? Either interviewer can drill you down to the actual implementation, like actual logical or algorithmic part of it. And the other thing is to also touch upon the scalability aspect of it, right? Because we are doing the system design. So based on the estimation that we did earlier, like, the capacity planning, let's say 100K was right and 100K was read and 10K was right, based on your estimation. I felt that you fail to connect the dots there, because in this design, because things are going so fast, and I don't know, at least for me, I feel like things are moving so fast. I mean, there's so much thing to discuss in this topic, and the other thing is they're using the real as a space here, because you are just using the same slides and drawing over and over things. And I think if the interviewer is from outside point of view, he will not be able to understand what you're trying to articulate from your thought process, because that's what I feel like it's a basic point there. So that's my update. Thank you. But it was good session though. The topic was very good, and it was very interesting. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the feedback. Deepali, are you about to go?
Yeah, I just kind of agreed to this previous feedback. Like, I
Mm.
like the whole interview, but I saw at some places I also felt like it's a little bit rushed. So the topics were covered like on a like great depth, but if he would have focused on like one particular topic and went into depth and articulated it better, it would have been like a crisp presentation.
Mhm.
Got it. Got it.
Thanks,
Sure.
Deepali.
But having said that, I liked it overall. Like I got to know like different areas to
Yeah.
focus on
Mm.
in terms of this design.
Okay. Thanks, Deepali. Um, anyone else?
Hey guys, this is Nitin, and
Mm.
probably like new to
Mm.
these.
Mhm.
So first of all, I'm very thankful to the guys Rajiv and Shiva who is giving this session. This is very informative, and the feedback which I have is, I think so from the requirement gathering, he started good, but
Mm.
we lose the focus of customer obsession here, and how we can bring that up is by creating the use case out of the three requirements what we have. I think so: ingestion, search, and reservation. After he gathers the requirement, if we create like the use cases, the use case number one, use case number two, use case number three, and work through the flows with those use cases, that will make more sense when he's focusing on the customer obsession, and also like making his flow through the end-to-end flow and explaining the process.
Mhm. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I think that's kind of again like towards in validating also, like if you have those use cases to make sure you fulfilled. So yeah.
Can you please tell can you please tell me, like, by use cases you mean
So
oh sorry, yeah.
sure. So as of now, like you being a developer, you will be focusing on three things here. Number one, ingestion. So you have to ingest the data into the system. That is your one of the use case from business perspective, right? Number two, if you
Mhm.
come as an end customer, either you are just browsing the things or like searching for the rooms or searching for the hotels, right? And number third is that once your search is successfully done, you will be making the reservations. So if you split
Mhm.
your problem into three use cases and then have the flow run end to end, that will
I
make a
see.
better story when you are presenting in an interview.
I see. I got it. Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So it's mainly like you're saying like he explained all the three together. So instead you were asking to focus one by one. Is that
Uh,
correct?
that is correct, because like
Mhm.
when like
Mm.
whenever we talk about a business case, Like if so, like he started with ingestion, he went well, and then when we talk about search finish altogether, the ingestion, how he wants to store the data, how he wants to keep the data, okay, and how he wants to do the scalability, uh, uh, and probably once that use case is finished, then move to the second use case.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks, Nitin. And Raji, if you have any questions on like when someone is providing feedback, you can always ask like how you could have done or like.
Yeah, I think I agree to the points which have been raised. I think I did went a bit fast, to be honest. I think I've got this feedback in the past as well that I'm not maintaining a good. I'm not keeping the interviewer in the loop and not asking them constantly that, hey, am I in the right direction? And perhaps speaking and going on a monologue. I think I've got this feedback in the past, and I think somebody has given now as well. So I agree. Real estate wise also, yeah. I try to make use of the Jamboard feature as much I can, but then I think perhaps that was perhaps not so well. People perhaps could not connect to it, which
Mhm.
again is true. If people cannot connect right now, then I think
Mhm.
mostly perhaps in a real interview setup also, perhaps somebody will not be able to connect. I also wanted to say that one of the reason I had to go fast was because of the scope of this problem was quite huge, and these all these things are kind of independent things in itself, which could have been topic of discussion independently, just the search piece itself, because there are so many other things that could have happened. And one thing which I'm hearing is which I'm hearing is that I could not connect the dots back to the requirement section, which I again agree to that feedback. Because nowadays, like this thing has kind of become a pattern that we do FR and then we will do NFR and then we design. But then, yeah, I think I never kind of rolled back to see that okay, the things which I set out, promised and kind of set out for, have they actually been achieved or not? I think
Yeah.
it was somewhere in my mind, but then it just got too much of content to talk about, and then I think got lost in that. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep in mind the same.
No, I think Rajiv. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think I agree. I mean, I've been bitten by this thing before. I mean, what happens is if you go to the design, the weeds of all the design, and go deeper and deeper and deeper, you completely lost. And I think it's natural tendency of us, right? Is that,
Yes. Yeah.
and given that
I
everything is
agree.
remote, right? So
Yeah.
it's gonna naturally happen. But I think the main focus is that don't lose the focus why we are doing this, right? And more importantly, designing is all about trade-off, right? So
Yeah.
there's nothing correct answer is what I was being told. So it's more
Mhm.
about balancing these things out is really important, because I
Yes.
don't think so you can design this everything in a 45 minutes. I don't think so even interviewer was expecting you to design each and
Mhm.
everything was crystal clear, but it's more about the communication and trade-off is what makes you special.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
Agree.
that's why we are doing this. That's why we are doing as a platform where we can all learn together. And
Absolutely.
it's better to get a critical feedback now and clear the real interview with flying colors. So I feel
Yep.
it's good to get critical feedback right away and see how we can improve. And I think few things are psychologically. The more you practice, the more we will do this. Next time you will see there will be automatically there will be a different. There's always a different thing you can do, or even I can do. Everybody can do in the next time. And if I want to give a very general thing, I generally tell people to use Microsoft OneNote for the interview and share your screen, because there you get a really big landscape. You can go in one single screen. You can go up and down and show your interviewer, okay, where we started. And always I feel that your requirements and whatever your design should be side by side,
Mhm.
and that's all that automatically will come that, oh, after you design you will see, oh, these were my requirements, whether I'm going on the right track or not. So in that way you will you yourself will figure it out. Okay, where I'm going, and let me see if I have any of my OneNote sample which I can show you. So
Yeah.
which would be helpful. Give me a sec. Meanwhile, anybody else want to give any feedback can go ahead.
Yeah, Rajiv, one quick feedback, right? I know this, you can't cover all the topics, but initially, right, you were giving like a FR and NFR. You you wrote down all the things, and then at that point, you made a good point saying that in the interest of time, right? So you should simplify the solution. You know, you can't design the whole, um, Airbnb in like 45 minutes, right? So you can say in the interest of thing, we can do all this, but you strike off the login, you strike off other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that also, wherever possible, right? You can just mention it and strike it off, saying that in the interest of time, if I had more time, I could have done this, but since I don't have time, um, I will do this way. So you can
Okay.
always have the trade-off of all the things. And one more good point that was brought was customer focused, right? So you can say as a customer, right, how will I use the system, and or what are the scenarios that you expect. So I'd write a use case initially, NFR and FR, and then a use case. As a user, I want to log into this, right? Then again, after every 15-20 minutes, you try to relate it back to your
I see.
diagrams and all your elastic load balancers and everything, how this will relate back to use case one. So whatever I'm doing
Mm,
here is relating back to use case two, and
I see.
how this is all ties back. So that way you can actually, quickly tie back and keep last 10 minutes to again go back into the same thing and revisit it, saying that whether I'm doing good on time. If at all I had more time, I would have done this. So that you can say
Mm,
in the last 5 to 10 minutes, even before you don't have time,
I see.
because you already you don't have much time to. You're already at the end of the time, right? And you
Yeah.
can't keep on going on your current design, but you still know a lot of topics that you want to share to the interviewer, right? So what you can
Right.
say is, in since I have last 5 minutes left, or 7 minutes left, keep a stopwatch and say that in this, if at all I had more time, I would have worked on high availability, latency, throughput, and I would have
Mm,
done this. So just quickly mention all the things that you could do. And if interviewer wants to grill or ask you on one specific area, he will just
mm,
pick on that one part. Okay, I know you can do
mm,
all this, but what about high availability, right? How will you
I
Mm.
see.
scale out?
Rajiv, would
Will
you
you?
like to keep the screen
Yeah,
share on? I don't know if Asim is ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
yeah.
As
Oh, okay,
That
okay. You
was
can share. Yeah.
so
so.
as soon
The last 5 minutes is very key. So use that as a uh, thing to close the deal.
Right. I think you are right, Praveen. I think the last 5 minutes, I think it's important that we kind of tie back to what we started with, so that interviewer also feel that we have closed the loop. So agreed. I think great feedback, Praveen. Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's easy to say all this, but when you're on the other
No,
side,
no.
Rajiv, it's different.
I think maybe that's why I'm taking note. I'm actually taking notes what were you guys are saying, and maybe I will remember them hopefully.
uh, Praveen, are you done?
I'm
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I was just want to say that I generally prefer OneNote setup where you can write all the
Mm,
other things on the left side and then start drawing there. And it's a OneNote. You can always zoom in, zoom out. You can take your interviewer to, and in the landscape you have unlimited. Like you can keep on going left, right, bottom. You can zoom out on things, zoom in, back, take back to the requirements, and do a lot of things here. And typically I prefer a black uh, setting. If you are on Windows, this could be done really easy if you go to options and say there is something dark, and then I give a standard of 14, a bigger font. And on this, you can choose different pens, whichever you like. I recommend using I recommend using white or bluish. Don't use
Mm-hmm.
red. It looks really come to the eyes, but I think this color or a white color should be good. And then you can even adjust how much width you want. You want like a bigger one or more bigger. You can have like a bigger one also, like something like this, and uh, and then based on your zoom setting you can zoom it more, zoom less, whatever you want. That's what I
I
like,
see.
because then you have everything together. After you are done, you can say let's quickly look our requirements back and
Mm.
uh, see where we are. So no shifting of gears between different screens, go moving back and forth. And as and logically your mind will also work in that way, because everything together you can connect the dots yourself. And in OneNote the calculations are also easy. That's what I've seen. There are a couple of things uh, there are a couple of things which you can do. Let me share again. For
So
example,
one question, Asim, like some Drupad asked, like, are you using mouse or like the pen on iPad?
I was using mouse, but I have a pen. I think even Rajiv was using some pen, or you're using mouse to draw.
No, I was using a pen on a tablet. Yeah, that's right.
Everybody who is doing like virtual interviews, I think most people have. And even you can have these boxes handy if you want.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
No,
So
I like this thing actually. To be Sasim, I think the important thing is you don't lose track of things which you have requirements which you have written actually. And the infinite scrolling thing is also a great advantage because otherwise I was rushing through I had to create new frame all the time in Jamboard.
yeah,
So this definitely is a better thing. I was not aware of existence of this tool.
let's say
This
you're
of one.
doing something like you have some requirements of 30 million, uh, 30 million TPS, let's say. So if you do, oh, sorry, it
Oh
gives.
wow. This is awesome, man. This kinds of then
I think it
solves
has.
a lot of.
I think it has some basic mathematics. If you Google, it will tell you that what all things it can do.
This actually can help a lot in that back of the envelope calculation. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I will say like as soon you are done. So let's say this value comes something like let's say this you. So interviewer told you like I want some 35 and sorry. Okay, Windows and then you say oh some value came like this, then you can always round up. You can say okay, this is like 35 into 10 raised the power kind of 6 again. You can always simplify again and say I will see it like this.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, that's what you can. And up to you, I think even scientific notation works here. So if I do into 1e6, yeah, this also works.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's definitely better. No doubt.
So yeah, so up to you. What do you want to use? Uh, yeah, I feel I generally recommend this setup with black background, white pen, all
Mm-hmm.
text on the left side, and all your drawings on the right side, and then you can zoom in,
Right.
out, pan around, and yeah.
Okay. Rajiv, feel free to share your screen back so that like
Oh,
people have
yeah.
idea when,
Yeah, sure.
if they want to give feedback. Asim, you want to give feedback as you're speaking?
Uh, I think I couldn't attend fully because I got
Mm.
a really important
Okay.
call.
Okay, no problem. Let me see if anyone else like to go. If not, like I think myself and Sri Prasad are pending. So
Is this regarding the mock interview?
Yes. The feedback on.
Oh, the feedback. Okay.
So yeah, I think I can quickly give my feedback. I agree to most of the folks here. And you started off pretty good, like by asking good questions, and I liked that like you skipped at least capacity estimation in the interest of time. I mean, like I noticed that, and that was a good decision because we could always come back if Sri Prasad was really testing you. But like I see that like he was okay in doing that. If he had some questions, he would have asked, "Let's do this." So it's always like driven by interviewer, right? So and you got to the high level block diagram pretty at, like in an ideal pace. And I think you got lost track when you're diving deep. So it's kind of, again, like as others said, like it's kind of balancing the act. Like there are a lot of components, and since you're speaking fast, and some of it could be like your handwriting might not be clear, and some of them had to be repeated. So I don't blame you, but like that's kind of situation we might fall into. But some things that you could improve, as everyone said, is like you have to your presentation with handwriting, at least like using the Jamboard, is not good. So I mean, like not everybody followed here. So though I was able to make sense like what you are trying to present, um, I see that like some interviewers could again be like one of the audience, right? So if they don't get like whatever you try to do, it's half the party is like communicating in the virtual world.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So um and I think like periodically you can check with Shri Prasad, because I see that he is stopping you and setting the direction or like asking questions. I didn't see you speaking up to him and asking
Yeah.
like, is this what you are looking to?
Yeah.
Mm, I think there was something else I forgot. I forgot to capture. Yeah, again, like towards the end, you had to set time like as don't forget, like there is a template which you can follow, like after, if we say like there are like 5 minutes pending, then, or like if you have anything to wrap up, what are the ideal use cases, like what you have been fulfilled, what is not. I see that like there is the reservation system design. You could and you realize that, I see that you realized, but like that wasn't up to an ideal standard. But like I like your overall thought process, like when Sri Prasad posed any question, you are thinking, and um, like like how generally people think. I mean, like you're trying to come up with a solution, like this could be one, that could be one, and you know the problems of what of choosing one approach versus the other, though you are proposing any solution. So I like that, like whatever you say or like propose, you know the internals of it. um so your depth of knowledge is good, but like I think if you could try to get into this balancing act and like get into good way of presentation, I think it's going to shine. And with respect to time management, I don't know, it depends on the interviewer. Like some companies expect like to also cover like after the design how you monitor things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you know like this use case is working properly? You told like there are some, again going back to NFRs, right? How do you ensure this availability? Sri Prasad stress on availability a lot, right? So that's where you went into replication also after he stressed in like what if happens if that fails.
Right.
So to
Right.
ensure availability, you need to have good monitoring in place. to make sure that this is failing, I have to tune this. So I have to change this service to act this way, like that.
Got it.
Um, I think that's pretty much at high level. If I remember anything again, I'll let you know.
Sure,
Sri
sure.
Prasad, yeah, you
Thanks,
can
Naga. Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead with your feedback. Yes.
sure. Like what most of the people said here, slow, go slow when you discussed. You were going so fast. I could follow you, but there were times when I was looking and I just lost you for a while. But
Mm,
luckily, your diagram was all well connected, and I could just follow and come back to the path. So just be slow, uh, and ask the interviewer after taking a pause, like, is this okay? Or if you go too far away, and after some time, if the interviewer feels that this is not what I want, and you would have to trace back all the steps, and the time is lost. So
mm,
ask the interviewer, pause. You were going too fast. Uh, there were a lot of moving parts in your design. Like all of them were
mm,
correct, but it was hopping from one thing to another thing to another thing so fast that it was little tricky to knit them together to a cohesive design,
mm,
like end to end. So take one part, complete it, and then go to another one and go slow.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and then when you spoke a lot of things, assuming that another set of things were working behind the scenes. For example, um, you talked about how Kafka will be used for updating the listing in Elasticsearch. But I,
mm.
that was later when I asked you, hey, how is it going to happen? Then only you
Yeah,
mentioned, like, those
yeah.
were the things which, if you had drawn earlier, it would have been easier. And I would never have asked that question to you. And you would have actually drawn exactly what you had in your mind. But you had in your mind that, okay, Kafka will be updating, which is fine, which is totally correct also. So draw whatever you have in your mind and make your assumptions known to the interviewer. Okay, this is what I'm looking.
Mm, got it.
You, at many point of time, your depth of knowledge was too good. Like for example, you chose Elasticsearch over, say, Quadtree or some other structure for storing the location. But at some point, when the database or other, where I was asking you, hey, if you were to design, what would you have chosen? Then you were all over the place. I felt
Mm,
sometimes like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you said, okay, you will come back, but we never came back. And that could be because of
yeah.
time constraints and other things. But make sure you stick with one topic, because you have very good depth of knowledge. Use that to your advantage. And the last thing is, again, what earlier was said, like monitoring. That is something which we
Mm,
always forget. But
mm,
for systems of highly available, you need to make sure that there is no single point of failure. And if there is a single point of failure, how you can monitor it. Yeah.
got it.
Thanks, Sri Prasad.
Thank you, Shri Prasad. Yeah, very, very helpful. I think I agree to all of these points.
Yeah, one thing on Sri Prasad, like I see you improved from, I think you also did another interview in the past, right? So compared to that, like I feel like you did pretty good in this. And I wanted to understand, like, was it your idea, like, to cover all the breadth, like all of the three flows in depth, or like were you planning to probe in one particular?
So I
So
was
what
trying
was?
to probe in the reservation side,
Mhm.
but then I realized around at 49,
Yeah.
40 something, that he was
Yeah.
still in that area. So I nudged him to move towards the
Mm,
payment side.
mm.
And
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like maybe yeah. In that case, like we could have started with the reservation little earlier. From your,
Mm,
you could have pushed Rajiv to start little earlier, so that like the challenges on the payments part he didn't have a chance to correct, or like at the end, like what design ended up like has a lot of bottlenecks. So reservation became like a key blocker from my perspective. So. because he's doing a lot of things on that. Rajiv, like the moment you realize that it's doing a lot of things, you'll have to scale up or like introduce additional components, because yeah, if you just adhere to like a single responsibility, that will be better, like that principle. Each service adheres to like a major goal of single responsibility.
Got it. Do you guys have any good resource? I mean, to read up on the reservation flow actually. I agree there were loopholes there, but is there any standard thing or any design or any blog if anybody is in the
I think
audience know?
any booking system, if you go through, I think they should automatically cover. So just go into one of these blogs and see
Mhm.
how this normal payment system works. So
Got it.
if you are to make it synchronous, it will become simpler, but again, like you will be its throughput will be reduced.
Yeah.
So since you are anyway using the temporary blocking, you could have moved that payment invocation to another, I don't know, in an additional offline processing where you synchronously invoke the payment and immediately get the response. So if something happens, you can use that reservation ID as the um, for idempotency to make sure that you are not charging the customer card again if some network thing happens. So yeah, there
Yeah.
are, I'm sure like there are a lot of systems out there, but like if you go to any engineering blogs of, I
Mm.
think, Uber or like any system or booking.com, I
Mm-hmm.
think you should get to know.
I would like to
Got it.
add that, like, if you can look into transactional invox and outworks, how microservices implement that. So basically, it is used to
Yeah,
span
I
your
think
transactions across
Can
some
you can you
microservices. Sorry,
uh,
Shashank, you are not pretty clear. I think I don't know if
can you hear
so.
my
yeah,
voice?
can you please repeat? Yeah, can you please repeat?
What I'm saying is, while implementing the payment, normally payment is handled by a different gateway, right? So it's not like a
Yeah.
DB transaction. To make it a transactional, you can use something in microservice pattern called transactional inbox and outbox. And
Mm-hmm.
then to roll back all those things, you might be able to write an offline job to track that, okay, these have been already paid and all those things, like reconcile them and revert them back to the like
Mm.
account of the customer in case of complete failure after some time, something like
Okay, got it. Sure. I will look up these terms. Thank you.
So yeah, and also like learn about some of the payment basics. In general, how it works is like you don't immediately charge the customer. You just make
Okay.
sure that the card he gave has the room to like you just authorize for that amount. You never charge. So there is a difference between authorization and actual charge. So
Mm-hmm.
if there is any ship to orders, all companies, like it could be anybody, like you cannot just charge now. You should charge only when the ship of the item happens. So at the time the taxes could be different. So there are a lot of things. So you just charge the credit card and make sure, I mean, like authorize the credit card at the time of booking or reservation to make sure that the card is good. So we don't end up getting issues later. So
Got it.
that's all
Okay.
like the payment internals normally. So as long as you authorize and you are good enough, you can immediately reserve it in in the system perspective.
Okay. Got it. I will look up these things. Thank you.
One other question I had in general for everyone here is in reservation systems, like what from user experience point of view, initially it is good to show the available ones, but then how do you avoid DDoS kind of thing? Let's say you're in this Airbnb example. If multiple a lot of people are looking at the same one, they're just looking, but they're not booking. But so 15-minute reservation is what he said. Typically, how is it done? Does anyone know?
I think like we should not. DDoS is a term like I mean, like some people illegally try to close your service, right? Like with a
Right,
false
right.
this
Like
one,
DDoS.
but like these are like real users, so we shouldn't
Yeah,
impact.
yeah. I just
Mm,
use that term because just to make
mm,
it easy to understand what I'm saying. So, in general, let's say
mm.
hundreds of people are just watching or looking at the availability. So, from customer perspective, you want to show that those are available, right? But
Yeah,
then
I think
uh, you don't want to block it either.
you don't want to block it like when they're looking actually. So that's there is a flow like once he started entering the details and he's in the I think there is a normally most I think some of the people they say you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes which is blocked. So that will start actually once you start um, clicking the reserve button or not reserve button once you start the entering your details.
I
um,
see.
Once you say book, I think initially it will be book and at the end it is confirm reservation. So when you click book and go to the page where you enter details, that's where it will
Right.
go to this blocked state. So not before, like not when people are viewing.
Yeah, so if we choose that approach, the trade-off there is that you, from the initial initial view customer perspective, they are seeing things are available. By the time they go to book, they are not seeing things available, right? And this can happen for,
No, no,
let's say,
no.
more so
Oh,
many.
okay, okay. I see. Like when you
There's a trade-off between both, like keeping it blocked versus like either initially it's a good experience where you show everything, or later while booking it's available. Once you see it's available, so I as a customer, I would want the flow to go through, right? The moment I see it's available, and but how do you
I
do
think
it?
people actually like the moment you say blocked, it is not available for others. So the availability should not be shown for those items which are currently being blocked for at least another 5 minutes. So if this depends on the current user who is making reservation, so I think during that time it shouldn't be listed as available, but it can come back to available right after that this guy exits or doesn't make a reservation or something fails. So then it goes back to the available pool.
Hmm. Because yeah, in that the challenge being for that 5 minute period, let's say there are hundreds, even airline tickets, right? You're sort of taking the loss as the company then for that blocked window when people are viewing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, got
Yeah,
it.
it's kind of again, yeah, a business product trade-off that you need to make,
Yeah.
whether you
Okay.
want to, yeah.
I was just curious of thoughts. Yeah, thanks. And then the second question I had was in general about the availability part. How are these stored? So from date to date, we didn't discuss much about that, right? So per listing, you would have 365 days or something of entries, or like I'm still visualizing how that is. Thoughts, ideas on that from everyone here. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in my design, I'm not sure if that's a good design or not. I think it was like the reservation table had this concept of from and to. So maybe like 12 to 28, this listing is either in confirmed state or in blocked state. The other could have been having like days entry rows for all of these 9 days, which was perhaps not a good idea. And but the thing in this design was that now the calculation part where if somebody is booking for like if 12 to 20, 12 to 28 is booked and somebody is looking for 15 to 17, and that logic the client will have to do at its end. There will not be million rows in this because this is just a reservation transactional kind of a thing, and we can keep on removing some of the older items from this as well.
So, for example, one way I can think of is, let's say days of the year are day 1 to day 365. Day 1, what are the
Mhm.
listing IDs available? Day 2, what are the listing IDs available? But I'm not sure if that's a good way of storing it, because what will happen is, let's say somebody books from day 52 to day 55, then you have to take out that entry from those 3 days, right? And again, this is so I'm just trying to figure out a structure, if people have
Mm.
idea
So
how.
I think another way to do this will be to keep this reservation as thing as a source of truth, and not just because our querying pattern is multiple. So if the querying pattern was one, just one or two, then we it could have, kind of impressed our DB design choices. But if there are multiple ways in which we are kind of doing the query, another way could be basically to have some kind of a wrapper cluster over it, and in which we keep the data in a way, in a subdata structure or some other kind of a way in which it is easier to query basically any kind of indexes we want to maintain, and then the two things will have to kind of remain in sync, so that it presents a more recent view to the user. So in this
So I
way,
think
the table
it's
can, yeah.
yeah. Go ahead, Raj.
No, no, that's all. That's all. Yeah.
Mm. So I think, yeah, this is a good discussion. I think it deserves on its own, because the search problem, right? Typical search problem.
Correct.
I think it's not like one way. Like, I think it's a multitude of steps you may need to make to get it to a good available search service. So I would say, like, you should have a granular search, like, as like when you say, like, I think let's assume like all listings supports 1 day bookings at the minimum. You cannot go less than 1 day. So from that granular level, you should have availability tracked. So,
Mhm.
and then there is again range based searches. So there are some systems which would simplify this range based by taking advantage of the individual day availabilities. So let's say, like, each listing will have across for the next year, they'll have which days available depending on the booking so far.
Hmm.
And by taking leverage of this listings availability, there should be again some range based indexes which will help. So if you have
But typically you will query it the other way around, right? You will say, I want availabilities from this date to this date.
Yeah, that's what I
So
meant. For that, for those queries to work from front end,
uh-huh.
you should support those range queries, right? So you cannot
Correct.
simply say that you just have RDBS table and do a date range. It's going to be very slow.
Right.
So you need to have the indexes which supports that query so that it returns fast. So, but like the
I
trade-off
have a
of
question in here.
adding,
Like, sorry,
yeah,
just to inject one thing. Like, we can put a two columns, like a start date and end date, and we can build an index on both of them, like tree-based index, and
Mhm.
then we can do a range query, right? So we can detect that way whether they are overlapping or not. The current user
I
selected range.
Yeah,
So
there
will
is
you?
again some, yeah, I think that'll adding an index help, and also having a sort key, like depending on which days, because it's mostly continuous searches, right? It won't be like,
So let me also chime in.
mm, mhm.
So
So
there are two ways.
just before you go ahead, one question, like I will want to also clarify. So basically the question here, if it abstract it out completely, it's basically I have a multiple rows. Each row has two columns, which one column represents the start of interval, another column represents the end of interval. And then I am my query filter. I have a start of interval and end of interval, and I have to check what all rows overlap.
So it depends on whether you're talking about availability or booking. So if you're talking about, so the query that from user perspective is between these dates, what are the available entries?
Makes sense.
So
Then in that case, set will be inverse, which is stored in rows, actual row. right?
Right. So,
So
so let's
universe
say,
minus that set.
yeah. So the example you said, you have a booking table where you said start date, end date. This listing ID is booked. Then what will you do?
So then we can just query based on the both the, we can put a where clause on both of the fields, right? Uh, and then we
Mm.
can do the union of that end clause, something like that.
So will you find the ones that are booked during that time and then give the inverse of that, like
Means you
all the
can
way removing the
modify.
ones that are, sorry?
Sorry, go ahead. I think there's a lag.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, so I was asking, will you find all the listing IDs that are booked during that period, and then from your global set, remove this booked set, and then give the result set to the user who's querying for available list?
I think it might get a bit complicated that way, and you can put an inverse in the, means like logically, we can formulate this formula, and it can become a where clause directly in query.
Oh, we're not in. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sri Prasad
Okay.
is saying something.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shiprasad.
Yeah, I was actually going with what Shakti says, like having an index on the start date and end date, querying it, and if it's between that range, then update the Elasticsearch as well for the time for 15 minutes or whatever. And when at the time of booking, you're only looking at those states which are open and which is between the given range that the customer wants to book, and that should work for a range query where if it is indexed well. You could also have another structure to store these dates separately, but I feel like MySQL should be enough, or Postgres with the date indexes should be enough for this kind of query.
I think Shri Prasad, what they are focusing right now is on search and not booking.
Yeah.
If I'm not.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
but
there are some
what
other
Sri
data
Prasad said,
structures also.
sorry,
Yeah. Go ahead.
just
Go
to
ahead,
add that,
Shakti.
what Sri Prasad said, I was also saying the same thing.
Mhm.
Just I wanted to just isolate the question, so like start date and end date is only in the focus. So, but yeah, same thing what Sri Prasad said. It can be used. It can be done directly using any. Means if it's just an interval overlap, it can be done using any SQL based or RDMA based database with the tree based index.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are like many range-based search solutions out. Like you can, if you want to deep dive, like you can always go back and search for the blogs where they have this solved similar problems to look for the best practices. And so with this, let's end the session. We are a little over 5 minutes today, and people who like to hang on for informal chat, please hang on. Others can drop. Thank you, Shri Prasad and Rajiv again.
Thank you, Naga and Sri Prasad, for arranging this and conducting my interview. And thank you everybody for chiming in with their feedback. I appreciate it.